In today's episode of the Giraldo Show, we're going to be discussing the conditions that the Ukraine whistleblower gives the Republicans for answering questions, Beto O'Rourke and his withdrawal of the campaign, and his supporters claiming the mainstream media is at fault, and Elizabeth Warren revealing her $52 trillion Medicare plan. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you are listening to the Giraldo Show. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Giraldo Show. I am your host, Sebastian Giraldo. Let's go ahead and get right into the news stories of the day. So the first story of the day comes in the place of, once again, the Ukraine whistleblower, but this time it looks like he or she, as we determined last episode, it is potentially a he, gives some conditions for answering questions from Republicans. So this is according to the Daily Wire. The CIA whistleblower, whose complaint sparked the Democrats' impeachment efforts, has decided that he will take questions from Republican lawmakers after public outcry over the highly controversial process that Democrats instituted for conducting their impeachment inquiry severely threatened to undermine the entire process. Okay, so quick note about that. Yes, it's true. Right now, the impeachment inquiry has officially been voted on, and apparently it's going to go through. They're going to start inquiring, which, again, that means that they should have evidence for impeachment, but it looks like they're still trying to find evidence. They opened the inquiry to find evidence for impeachment, which is weird. So whistleblower attorney Mark Zaid made the announcement on Sunday via Twitter saying, quote, "Our legal team offered GOP direct opportunity to ask written questions of #whistleblower. Recent GOP messaging, led by President Trump, included this morning, has been to highlight original #WBER and demand disclosure of identity. Despite long-standing policy of House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence to protect #whistleblowers, especially anonymity," and he says in parentheses, "by the way, this was consistent with my efforts with GOP on #Benghazi," close parentheses. GOP has sought to expose our client's identity, which could jeopardize their safety, as well as that of their family. Zaid continued by saying, "We have directly engaged GOP as to the irrelevance of the whistleblower's information and identity, including addressing any issue of bias, but with little effect in halting these attacks. By the way, countless OIG complaints are filled anonymously and full of hearsay. It's common." Okay, so quick note about that. Very interesting that Zaid says that it's really important to keep anonymity, because if the reports that came out are true, that the whistleblower had ties with Obama, with Joe Biden, and has been a long-time Democrat, it could look bad for the whistleblower and the complaint, because it seems like there'd be a lot of bias that is being put in place. Zaid continued by saying, "We offered HPSCI and SSCI, both majority and minority, to have #whistleblower answer questions in writing, under oath and penalty of perjury. Obviously, per House rules, GOP is beholden to DMS. We, however, are not. Being a whistleblower is not a partisan job, nor is impeachment an objective. That is not our role." And again, that's fairly interesting to say, because the whistleblower has just now come out saying that he or she is only willing to submit answers in writing and is not offering to testify in front of Republicans. Zaid continued by saying, "So we have offered to @David Nunes, ranking HPSCI member, opportunity for minority to submit through legal team written questions to WBER. Questions cannot seek identifying info regarding which we will not provide, or otherwise be inappropriate. We will ensure timely answers. We stand ready to cooperate and ensure facts, rather than partisanship, dictates any process involving the #whistleblower." Okay, so very interesting there. The whistleblower apparently is only going to say in writing what he's only going to answer questions that in writing. And nothing is going to be said, apparently, in terms of for Republicans. For Democrats, he's going to splatter all he wants. He's going to say whatever he wants for the Democrats. But for the Republicans, no, only in writing. So a Republican source connected to Democrats' impeachment inquiry said on Sunday, "I don't think we will settle for scripted interrogatories. We need a full accounting of his actions and how this was orchestrated." Republican lawmakers have noted that one of the things they want to press the whistleblower on is his connections to Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, after it was revealed that Schiff had communications with the whistleblower and that he actually pushed the whistleblower to release his information. And obviously, Schiff lying about it. During a recent speech on the floor of the House of Representatives, Representative Louis Gohmert noted the importance of needing to physically see the whistleblower. This is a Republican from Texas. He said, "You get to ask questions, you get to see the questions, you get to hear the answers, and you get to observe the witnesses. It's important, and yet under orders of the Speaker and Chairman Schiff, this so-called comparative grand jury kept the huge majority out of those hearings, where we could hear and see for ourselves, and now we find out through the vote today that, yeah, the Judiciary Committee is ultimately going to get this from the Intelligence Committee. But never in the history of this country have we had such gross unfairness that one party would put armed guards with guns to prevent the dully authorized people from being able to hear the witnesses and see them for themselves. And then all we hear from this resolution today, we're going to send you to the depositions after we get through doctoring and looking at and editing the transcripts. We'll send you those so you can have the evidence you need. That's not the kind of evidence that a coup should be based on. If we're going to have what they're trying to legalize as a coup, we ought to have a right to see each of those witnesses, and the only potential use for the deposition should be impeachment of those witnesses. Nothing else, not for anything substantive." So what he's saying there pretty much is saying that nothing can be trusted as from a written standpoint. It's important that the Republicans and the people questioning the whistleblower on the Republican side see who the whistleblower is and see if what he's saying is actually true, if he's actually like lying or if he's telling the truth, which obviously he'd have to tell the truth because of being on oath, but it would be a lot better to know rather than being on writing. So it's just really important to know that the whistleblower apparently only going to submit written answers to Republicans, but nothing else. All right, next story of the day. To all of the AR-15 and AK-47 supporters out there, anyone who owns those guns, congratulations. The number one salesman of those weapons has just gotten out of the presidential candidacy. Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis, he has just announced that he is dropping out of the Democratic race, and now his supporters are blaming, get this, the mainstream media for Beto's demise. So Friday night, former Texas Senate candidate Beto O'Rourke was forced to admit what most observers of his campaign have known for months. It was time to admit defeat and drop out of the race. But while Beto mania may have seemed fleeting for most election watchers, who saw O'Rourke's star fall almost immediately upon South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, a similarly coiffed but younger and more appealingly Midwestern version of O'Rourke, entered the race. The news that Beto mania had collapsed under its own sad weight was disappointing to the candidate's dozens of hardcore supporters. So pretty much what this article is saying is that Beto O'Rourke had this big climb in popularity until Pete Buttigieg came in, the mayor from South Bend, Indiana, and kind of started taking that Beto mania away and started to go more towards Pete Buttigieg. According to CNN's Eric Bradner, O'Rourke's own staff is treating O'Rourke's failure the way Hillary Clinton treated hers, by failing to admit fault and blaming their campaign's dramatic decline on everyone from the media to Donald Trump. Bradner tweeted, quote, "They're being polite about it but not shy. O'Rourke's supporters are furious about media coverage of his candidacy. They think the mockery was over the top, lasted far too long, and was punitive over him declining national TV interviews early on." Interesting, considering that the media is so focused on Donald Trump. I mean, I guess it would make sense why supporters would be like this. But still, I mean, come on. You know the media is on your side. You're going to blame the media for your candidate not getting through. Maybe if your candidate wasn't so outrageously far left and wanted to take away guns from a lot of Americans, maybe his campaign would be a little bit more successful. But specifically, O'Rourke's team is mad that their avant-garde approach to campaigning wasn't well received. That is, that audiences perceived O'Rourke as weird, oversharing, and trying too hard rather than how the campaign thought stunts like a live stream tooth cleaned should play out. This is true. I do agree with what audience perceived. I mean, yes, Beto O'Rourke was very over the top in the last few debates, being very anti-gun, especially anti-AK-47 and AR-15, saying that they're going to take them away, wanting to remove tax exemptions from churches just because they didn't support same-sex marriage due to religious reasons, not because they want to persecute, but because they're religious reasons, and just over-the-topness with really extreme policies. And it's just his character with releasing them. He was very, very loud about it, in comparison to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who were more calm down about it, and they weren't as transparent as Beto O'Rourke was, obviously. So there are a couple of tweets that some of Beto's supporters tweeted out in response to Eric Bradner's tweet that kind of show what Beto supporters are thinking. So Neera Tanden tweeted, and there's truth to at least part of that. Which part of the tweet is true? That the media coverage was too bad, or that he declined? I think the part that he declined interviews was very true. I don't know if the media, especially CNN, I don't think CNN was very hard on Beto O'Rourke. I mean, I don't watch CNN, so I could be very wrong, but I'm going to assume that they weren't as bad on Beto as they were on Donald Trump. Blue Texas Blue tweeted, to state it mildly, personally I believe he was our best chance to beat Trump, and regardless of my very real anger, hurt, and disappointment, I don't see much to hope in right now. Business as usual wins the day. MSN is worse than Trump. Okay, so here we have again the tolerant left. Once something happens that they don't like, they're just saying that it's worse than whatever they hated last time. They're right there. They're just blaming MSNBC probably, and just showing the frustrations of the Beto party. At Flabbergast 2017 tweeted, I will never forget at CNN, BRK, at MSNBC, at Joe NBC, at Washington Post, at Vanity Fair, at DNC War Room, at Don Lemon, at Klizza CNN, at J. Rubin Blogger, and the countless others who made certain Beto wouldn't have a chance. I will also never forgive at Joe Biden for running. I will not vote this primary. No words there, just a lot of tweets, a lot of ats to a lot of major news networks saying that they treated Beto as a joke. It's not their fault that he was so over the top about stuff. I mean, come on. It's Beto O'Rourke. He was so over the top about all of his issues that people just got tired about it. They correctly pointed out saying, okay, maybe he's a little bit over the top, but we'll see about that. At Zivinley says he was treated worse than Trump. I highly doubt that, especially with the mainstream media being Democratic or far left. I highly doubt Beto was treated as bad as Trump. I highly doubt it, considering that I saw on CNN once that apparently Donald Trump has radicalized more people than ISIS. I don't think Beto is treated as bad as Donald Trump is. At CJ Deist tweeted, as a Beto supporter, I admit there were several flaws to his campaign, but his biggest obstacle was definitely the unfair media coverage that was either viciously hypercritical or deliberately ignored his campaign completely. Yes, because when you're not in the top 5 of polling, you can ignore your campaign. Kamala Harris is top 5 and her campaign is being ignored. You don't see her supporters going insane. They probably will eventually if she ever drops out, but still. Of course, the mainstream media didn't make O'Rourke's live stream a dental appointment or skateboard across the stage in Iowa, or pose for the cover of Vanity Fair with a sad-looking dog, drop the F-word in his speeches, predicate the last month of his tour on a proposal to use law enforcement to confiscate assault weapons, or admit to wearing an odd animal costume to perform in a band in the 1990s. Those were all Beto's campaign ideas. So yeah, I think it might be more due to his campaign, not the mainstream media. So yeah. Beto O'Rourke's campaign autopsy, authored by Politico, seems to indicate that he and his team knew the end was coming for quite a while and simply tried to stave off certain death until it became impossible to avoid. By last week, the campaign was running on so little money, O'Rourke would have been forced to pay for either advertising or staff, but not both. The money destined for Robert F. Kennedy Redux was falling into Pete Buttigieg's pockets. O'Rourke, Politico reports, ran an unorthodox campaign, but that has its specific limits. There's a reason that most presidential efforts follow a very specific mold. It works. Yes, obviously. If something has been working for hundreds of years, why not just continue doing it? I understand you want to be edgy and you want to be out there, but it obviously didn't work for you, Beto. Maybe if you would have calmed down a little bit. In addition, he had no core crew when he announced his campaign. He failed to handle the media and Democratic donors with ease, and then he failed to raise any money, and then he live cast his dental work. So, Beto, sorry for you, man. I saw it coming a mile away. Ever since you said that you were going to confiscate assault weapons, I knew you were going to go downhill. All right, last story of the day. Elizabeth Warren releases a $52 trillion Medicare for All plan. This is $52 trillion over the next 10 years. So, doubling the debt of what it is right now. Almost doubling the debt. It's a little bit under, but anyway. She now claims that it will not raise any taxes on anyone except for billionaires. Interesting. Let's see what Elizabeth Warren really believes. This week, Senator Elizabeth Warren released her plan to fund Medicare for All, insisting her plan wouldn't raise taxes on middle-class Americans. On Saturday, CBS reporter Zach Hudek asked Warren what income bracket she used to determine the middle class. Warren's initial response made no sense, as she claimed, here, it's 100%. So everyone's middle class? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, if you're going to say that 100% of Americans are the middle class, that includes everyone. So anyway, it doesn't raise taxes on anyone but billionaires. And you know what? The billionaires can afford it, and I don't call them middle class. Huddock followed up his question by asking, so anyone under $1 billion net worth, that's right, is not paying a penny more. That's exactly right. Okay, so very, very interesting there, Elizabeth Warren. So anyone under $1 billion is not going to get their taxes raised. It looks like how Warren is going to raise money is going to be with a payroll tax. So for those who don't know, payroll tax is pretty much going to be taxing businesses a lot more. And what that's going to do, what economists generally say that a payroll tax does, it's that it's going to hit workers in the form of reduced wages. So you can't have it both ways. You can't ask for a $15 minimum wage and then want to propose this insanely expensive Medicare for All plan that then has to include a payroll tax that will then decrease payroll, or the pay that you're giving your workers. You're either going to put businesses out of company. They're going to go out. There are not going to be as many workers on the streets. There aren't going to be as many workers working in companies. They're going to be on the streets. They're going to be in the unemployment bracket. Or you're just going to see a lot of reduced hours, which means companies are not going to be able to make the revenue that they want. So this is a big problem with doing an entire payroll tax, but that's apparently what's going to happen, how she's going to raise a lot of this money. And obviously, billionaires are going to get taxed out of the wall. Like, they're going to probably have to end up paying everything. Huddock's tweet thread on the issue mentioned Warren's communication director, Kristen Orthman, saying that Warren was referencing the wealth tax, which is only on billionaires. Again, a wealth tax is unconstitutional. You can't tax someone based on their wealth. You can tax someone based on what they make, on their income, but you can't tax someone based on the overall wealth that they have. That's an unconstitutional thing. It's not in the Constitution anywhere that you can do that. Huddock added that Orthman acknowledges the capital gains tax would affect non-billionaires, but only the top 1%. Wall Street Journal reporter Josh Jamerson tried to get Warren to clarify by asking, is there a salary or income that you would define as middle class when you say no middle class taxes? Warren replied, sure, for Medicare for All, it's $1 billion. I don't know if anyone makes $1 billion in salary or income in this country. There are people that are worth that much, but I don't know if that's something that someone's getting paid. President Trump gets paid around $600,000 a year. Actually, no, he gets paid like $1 or a penny because he donates his salary away. Warren told Jamerson, I mean, everyone understands this. This is no increase in taxes for anyone except billionaires. Period. Done. This is about access to healthcare for everyone. This is about taking that $11 trillion that families will be reaching in their pockets to pay over the next 10 years and bringing it down to zero and funding it by increasing taxes on billionaires and giant corporations. That's the whole thing, and the other pieces all just stay where they are. The federal government keeps contributing, state governments keep contributing, and employers keep contributing, as they're doing right now. It builds on what we've already done and put into Obamacare, and just says, but we can do better for American families. Okay, here's a problem. When you tax giant corporations out of the water, they're going to leave. They're giant corporations for a reason. They have money and they could just relocate somewhere where they won't get taxed out of the water. And you're going to decrease jobs. Jobs are just going to start leaving the country. People are going to be in the unemployment bracket and they're not going to be able to afford more taxes. And they want to increase the payroll tax. They want to put a payroll tax. You're going to put more people on the street that are homeless, that are without jobs. That's not a good plan. Sure, you might get Medicare, but first of all, that Medicare is probably going to have to be split up. That's what they do in Canada. They don't have enough Medicare. They don't have enough healthcare, quality healthcare for everyone, so they have to spread it out rationally, which means that you're going to have wait times of 3 weeks is what I've heard sometimes. Not in the hospital, but just overall to see a specialist. You could have a huge wait time when here in the United States, you could go to a specialist in the same day that you go to the doctor's office probably. Or maybe even within probably a day is what I would say that you might have to wait for the most. Warren is going to have to clarify a lot in what she said. For starters, she conflated having $1 billion net worth with having a salary or income of $1 billion. Net worth and salary are very different. Billionaires in this country don't make $1 billion a year. Exactly what I mentioned before. You could be worth $1 billion, but there is no one in this country that gets paid $1 billion a year. I want to be that person, honestly. As an example, Mark Zuckerberg's net worth is more than $70 billion, but his annual salary from Facebook is $1. His base salary in 2013 was $500,000, according to Verdict. Zuckerberg's salary is in line with some other giant tech CEOs, including Alphabet's Larry Page and Twitter's Jack Dorsey. As Verdict reported, the CEO with the highest salary was Apple's Tim Cook at $3 million, very different from $1 billion. The CEO who earned the most in 2017, Snap's Snapchat's Evan Spiegel earned $637.7 million, still under the billion-dollar threshold set by Elizabeth Warren. So clearly she must be referring to a person's net worth, not the person's salary, so she's got to not get that mixed up in the future. Rival candidate Joe Biden's campaign pointed this out in a statement saying Warren's plan would create a new tax on employers of almost $9 trillion that would come out of workers' pockets. And this is true. You're going to decrease wages so that you can pay for this Medicare for all, and it's not even going to be that good. A new financial transaction tax that would impact investments held by middle-class Americans, and a new capital gains tax that would affect far more people than she stated tonight. This is all true. $52 trillion in 10 years is a massive amount. What we've racked up in over 200 years, we're just going to double that in 10 years. This country will go bankrupt if this plan goes in place. But I think if Warren ends up being the nominee, I think Donald Trump can win. And I hope he wins. I don't want this plan to go in place. I don't want a payroll tax to go in place. That would really cripple America. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to give your support by giving this podcast a follow, a subscribe, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or any platform that you listen to. Give it a like and comment what you want for next episode. Thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you're listening to The Giraldo Show.